Yeah, I love how, you, Tanya and Kevin, just you bring out questions that I'm like, gosh, they're such thoughtful questions. They make me think deeper. They make me, rely on God to give me the answer. Um, a question that I've not been asked before, or at least in a way that I've not been asked before. So I appreciate you making me, just dig a little deeper for the answers and hopefully inspiring other people that, you don't have to know the answers before somebody asks you the question.
Your message equals your $1,000,000 anthem. You don't have a sales problem, you have a message problem. If your words don't captivate, they don't convert. I have helped Grammy-winning artists craft unforgettable songs, and now we help entrepreneurs just like you craft your business messaging that actually sells.
You don't need more hustle, you need the right strategy. I help scale multi-million-dollar companies, and we can show you exactly how to systemize, scale, and dominate the market without drowning in the grind. Welcome to the Conquer Club podcast.
Hey everybody, have you ever felt called to do something that made zero sense and 0 cents on paper, but every inch of your soul whispered, say yes anyway? Well, buckle up, because today Ashlee Ilg didn't just say yes. She walked it out with purpose, built businesses with her husband, homeschools five kids, correct?
That's right.
And even adopted a daughter in the middle of the unknown.
Well, she is also the host of the Big Idea podcast, a homeschool mom of five, as we already mentioned, who traded in her corporate pinstripes for kingdom purpose. This is faith in action. You all are the kind that move mountains and build businesses. Let's welcome Ashlee Ilg to the Conquer Club podcast.
Thank y'all so much.
Ashlee, we always say that we need confetti sounds at this point.
I need that to be my morning wake-up call. I feel like, yes, let's go chase that kingdom purpose. I love that.
You're like, who am I? Who am I?
Yes.
Absolutely. Well, Ashlee, we know obviously you as a friend, but your story is wild. It is beautiful and brave. But let's start here. What do you say to the dreamer listening who feels stuck between perfectionism and purpose and wonders if they have missed their moment?
That's so good. We're just going to jump right into the deep end. I love that. Well, first and foremost, thank you all so much for having me on your podcast. It's a huge honor. And yes, our friendship goes back several years now, and it's such an honor to know y'all and to call you friends. But I love what you do with your messaging, with this platform. And so, yes, this is a huge honor to be here today. So to answer your question, such a good question, because that is me. I'm like, what would I say to me? The person that is looking perfectionism right in the eyeballs on a daily basis and knowing you're not it. You're not really what the goal is. I mean, it's not possible. So perfectionism, versus purpose. I mean, that's a huge gap, right? And it's almost like, in terms of like a visual, I can just picture like you're standing on one end of the cliff, right? And that's maybe you're looking at perfectionism on the other ledge, and you're like, gosh, I just want to do it perfect. So if I just plan over here, Tanya and I were just talking about this earlier. If I just plan it all just right, if I think through all of the outcomes, the possible outcomes, and just work every strategy just right, I'll try it once and I'll get it just right and it'll be great. And we all are laughing, or those of us can relate are all laughing because we're like, that's not even real life. And then on the opposite side, maybe behind us, complete opposite direction is purpose. And I have learned, and this is what I would say to answer your question, perfectionism is not the goal because it's not possible. And the sooner we realize that, and sooner we turn literally our backs to it and say, no, you have fooled me long enough. Now I'm chasing purpose. Now I'm chasing something that and the purpose is literally in the fact that it's not perfect. Because I think for me, again, I relate so much to watching people just walk through the messy, walking through the gritty, walking through the hard. And it's anything but perfect. But that's where they meet me. And so that's, I think, where prayerfully I'm hoping other people will meet me or themselves and realize, oh my gosh, this is exactly where I'm supposed to be, to make it even on a more practical level, one of my biggest life messages, I think, as an entrepreneur specifically is it really kind of riles me up when I see other business owners trying to paint this rosy picture of like entrepreneurism is like rose colored and, just this adventure that everyone needs to do because it's the best thing ever, and I'm an entrepreneur. I will always, love it, love it, love it. But at the same time, I'm like, oh, I will go to bat. I will never paint the entrepreneur life in like that perfect, never struggle, rose colored, light or whatever. It's hard, but the hard is what makes it great, to use like a really overused cliche, but it's anything but perfect. But there's so much purpose in pursuing something that can change other people's lives, can really make an impact and all of that. And so, I mean, I don't know if that answered your question, but I feel like there's so much there that I almost feel like purpose and perfectionism are almost like on a complete opposite spectrum. So you got to choose one or the other.
That's so good, Ashlee, because you're exactly right. I always say that the entrepreneurship, just like you said, it's if you've ever stepped into doing anything on your own, it's not easy, but nothing is. Becoming a doctor isn't either. Right. Staying stuck in a place that is not in your purpose is really hard too. Yeah. So everybody wants that freedom. And even though it's hard inside of that entrepreneur journey, it's actually teaching us about ourselves, I would say, because in the process, it's refining us. And because that it's outside of our comfort zone, would you say?
Absolutely. Yeah. And Andy and my husband and I say this all the time where, maybe something happens with, the kids or, a school situation, with their curriculums or something in the business or whatever. And I'm like, and we'll find ourselves frustrated or just dealing with these emotions that, seem to be coming from this particular situation. And we've learned that it's actually not the situation that's causing like this emotion, this response, this pattern, this habit was already in us. This challenge is just bringing it out of us. And so if we slow down enough, to recognize that as like, this is just an opportunity to refine this not awesome response or habit or thought pattern and be like, let's see this for what it is and what good it can bring out of us if it helps us to maybe not respond the same way again.
Yeah. What's coming out when you get squeezed is what I always say. What's coming out? So you've walked through the big pivots. You've walked through career shifts. You've walked the career shift to adoption to pandemic era entrepreneurship. I'm not sure if I have your timeline exactly right, but it's
all a big blur to me. It's okay.
Okay. Can you take us to just inside of the moment, Ashlee, when you said yes, that didn't make any sense that we talked about when we started this episode, but it was actually the obedience to say yes that led to something bigger than you even imagined?
Yeah. I mean, there's so many stories of that, honestly. And, I'll give you some context and maybe one will kind of jump out more than the other as we start. So, I went to college, did the whole, magna cum laude, let me add up everything onto my resume and, chase that corporate dream. And I went to Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University, got a 6-figure student loan because of it. When Andy and I got married, that's where we met. So we both had a nice 6-figure student loan debt from a private university. And I'm like, and now we don't do anything with those degrees, but, I met him there and it was all worth it, I'd do it all over again. But, but yeah, I think it was 6 or 7 years working the corporate job. We didn't have any kids yet, but we knew that we wanted to start our family. And I was actually laid off right when I came back from maternity leave with having our first son, Owen. And I bawled my eyes out. I did not
Mm.
like, I mean, looking back now, I'm like, I think I didn't like not being in control of that decision was really what the reality was. And I became a stay-at-home mom. We had already started our first business, and I was able to kind of help grow that a little bit more, put some more, creative energy into that. But it was a weird season of
Mm.
figuring out where's my place here. I really had never anticipated being a stay-at-home mom or even a work from home mom. My identity was really wrapped around this you know, corporate career driven, successful woman, and I like the idea of helping my husband grow a business, but I was like helping him grow the business versus like me really owning it. So I was always kind of staying on the safe side of what success looked like. And I really did struggle. We had 3 boys back to back to back. So in 3 years, we had 3 boys, and
Mm.
life got real hairy with, I was purely survival mode. We had 2 in diapers and 2 in cribs it felt like forever. I joke and tell people, if you ask me about any world or even national news that happened between 2010 and 2013, I could not tell you anything else that was going on. I was completely like
Right.
putting kids down for naps, changing diapers, whatever.
Yeah.
Literally, that was my season. And so,
Mm.
um, we started our golf cart dealership in our garage, also
Mm.
during that time period. So when you were talking about the timeline, I'm like, what? It is such a blur,
Yeah.
literally. But when we had our first son, Owen, our dealership is named after him because he was
Mm.
an itty bitty baby. And Andy was growing that. He was still working his corporate aerospace engineering job. And we were kind of,
Mm.
going in all the directions all the time, trying to sleep here and there. And it came a point where I had Gavin, our third son, and he was, our dealership had gotten to a point where something had to give. We either had to say goodbye to the corporate, every 2-week paycheck, quote unquote security,
Yeah.
and go full time into our business, which
Yep.
was going to require more work from me. Again, with the 3 babies
Mhm.
at home. And we just knew this needed to be a solid yes. We had grown out of our garage. We had gone into using several storage units. We're now renting like a dozen storage units. Then we had moved into a small garage, and we had just found a larger dealership space. And it was just this huge leap of like, oh my gosh, this could be a complete, disaster.
Yeah.
But we literally also can't keep doing it this way. And we talk about this conversation all the time. It was one of these like before the Carrabba's parking lot conversation and after the Carrabba's parking lot conversation, and he literally said to me, I can't keep doing this like this.
Yeah.
We've got to make a decision. What are we going to do? If you tell me to drop the golf cart business, I will.
Mm.
But if you can go all in with me, like, let's make this happen. And so we, lots of tears and lots of just like, prayer, and really just a scared yes of like, I don't know that we have another choice right now. We can't say no to this. There was proof that the golf cart business was going to keep growing and
Mm.
all of that. And so that was
That's
definitely a big yes for us.
so good. So
Yeah.
good. And I think the key word there is scared yes.
Mm,
Because, if we can do things on our own, yes, uh, and it's a scared yes, that's where we get guided by him because it's out of our control.
yeah.
I always say we cooperate with him. It's not like we're
Hmm.
just like, oh, we're going to make this decision. It's going to work out. And we're
Right.
not doing the due diligence. We're not doing the work attached to that.
Right.
But how many years out are you in the golf business, the golf
Yeah.
carts?
So when it officially started was 2010 when Owen was born, but he walked away from his corporate job in 2013.
Wow.
So that was, over a decade now. And yeah, it's continued to grow. It led into the manufacturing company that we started several years ago. Just so many opportunities, so much community building and opportunities with all of that. There was definitely a season where, and when I say season, I mean years, where, the kids were coming along and their friends would have birthday parties or events and sports. We actually kind of postponed the whole, driving our kids around to sports for several years. But because I knew once we said yes to that, that was going to be like, that's a whole
big
job
old
in
yes.
itself. Yes.
Absolutely.
But there were years that I was always at the shop on Saturdays and several times during the week as well. And we just had to say no to a lot of things. So the whole family sacrificed for it, but they understand. They've seen the good, the bad, the ugly. They're a part of it, but I think, and I pray, ask him all the time, but I think they see the fruit of it more than they see there's only good feelings towards all of that.
Good.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and I heard you say something that's important for all of us, all the listeners, is that it's okay to say no. It's okay to say no. We have this mindset that we just got to keep going and keep pushing. And, the world rewards the hustle and grind and all that. And it's like, no, it's okay to say no. I will say Tonya and I are getting better at that here in our mid 50s because
I'm not quite mid. Let's interject here, babe.
Okay. I'm in my mid 50s and you're 1 year away from your mid 50s.
I'm close, but just don't put me there.
Tanya's a babe. You'd never tell.
She's just a baby. But
no, I own my age. I own it. Go on. I'm sorry. I'm interrupting this program.
No, it's beautiful. This is what we love about it. But it's okay to say no.
Yeah.
And so if there's one thing that any entrepreneur that's going for it, taking that or saying yes to it, knowing that they're going to be given opportunity after opportunity to overcome stuff, it's okay to say no. So with all the entrepreneurs that are listening who feel like their identity is tied to their performance, how would you, Miss Ashlee, personally separate the striving for worth from stewarding your calling? The difference here, what would be a good sound piece of advice for an entrepreneur who is trying to personally separate from striving for their worth in their corporate America job?
Yeah. Such a good question. And again, well, let me think, what do I tell myself? So,
right.
And I can't even really begin to answer that question without talking about my faith, because I think that whole question revolves around your identity. And so if your identity is based on you and what you can do, and even back to the years that I worked in the corporate job, I floundered in the transition because I didn't really know where my identity was built on. And so for me, and maybe for several listening, I'm a daughter of the Lord. I am a child of the King. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter what boxes got checked that day, how long my to-do list was. Although I will say, I am still guilty of this, and it's like a guilty pleasure, even if it wasn't on my to-do list, but I got something done that day, and it was like a little bonus, achievement. I will write it on my list and check it off.
Yeah.
So there's still healing coming, but yeah, so for years everything I did was in pursuit of making other people proud, getting their applause, pleasing other people, making sure if they needed me to do something, but I also felt like I was called to do something, well, I made sure that what they needed got done first, and not in a I'm not putting down obviously selflessness or serving others, but in terms of just people pleasing and reacting to, oh, well, that didn't get any applause. Or I have said this before too, where if there was something that could get public acknowledgement for over maybe the quiet work, I mean, it's embarrassing to admit it, but I would do the thing that other people would acknowledge me for, or say, great job. That was so well done, versus maybe quiet time with the Lord, or, again, stewarding a gift quietly, or, even today, something as simple as like having a just a fruitful day with my kids in our homeschool classroom, and not feeling like, oh, I better make a reel about that. Something as simple as that, like just do your work quietly with excellence. There's so much tension, I feel like, in the process of knowing what you're called to do, doing it unto the Lord, without needing recognition, without needing the applause, without worrying what other people are going to say. Whether, and I've only talked about the positive applause, but what about the people that don't like what you're doing?
That's right.
That's the whole other side of it. Well, I'm so sorry you don't agree with what I'm doing, or I'm so sorry you can't see the vision I'm working towards, or I'm so sorry you can't appreciate the growth I've gone through to get to this point.
There.
Like getting to the point where you're like, I've got nothing to prove. I'm just showing up with what God's given me in the time he's given me, with what's right here in my hand, right here in this moment, and being so okay with that, and having so much peace about that, and confidence and joy. And you just know it's from the Lord. It's because he's proud of you. And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if anybody else is or not.
Doesn't matter. And also people on the opposite lens of that, people that are talking about their homeschool day is great on the reel. You never know what the 5-10 years prior to leading up to that is. And a homeschooler mom needs connection with somebody, so they're so extremes, but the bottom line is, if your identity is in him, then you go forth, and it doesn't matter what anybody says, you're pleasing him. That's what the difference is. Cause I see both ends of those spectrum. And I would have been one of those, like, I can't post anything. Are you kidding me? But then I realized it's not even about me. It's about giving other people hope, giving them healing. It's what happened to us. So I think that's so honest and real on both sides of that, Ashlee, because you don't want to show perfectionism, but nobody's going to show the hard stuff. And if sometimes you encounter people sharing hard stuff or very toxic stuff also, which is ew also, it's the attention of the ew as well. So it's an interesting paradigm. But like you said, the bottom line is, who am I centered in? Who is my source for everything? Everything.
Yeah. And in addition to just stewarding it, the topic of stewarding anyway, it's reminding everybody that we've all been given different and unique gifts and talents.
Right.
And so when you step out and use your gifts and your talents in your unique way, you are automatically giving everyone else permission to do the same.
That's right.
Yeah.
So when you, Ashlee, so speaking of, raising 5 kids, homeschooling, building a business, some of our listeners may be hearing this thinking, how is she doing all of that? All of that. So for our listeners, what would you say? And again, we all established that nothing is perfect. To even pretend like that is true, that is false. So we all know that, but it's no small feat to do what you're doing. How do you and your hubby, how do you practically co-lead at home in your business with keeping that faith at the center? Do you have, just in a practical way for our listeners, do you have any systems or scriptures or sanity savers that you do to help somebody who's listening?
Yep. So I do have a scripture on the top of our whiteboard in our homeschool that says they'll be taught by the Lord. And so I'm not even saying it right now. I'll have to think for a second. Oh my gosh.
It's okay.
We're going to have to edit this part out.
It'll come around.
It'll come around. But it's basically saying, and it's not on you. And it's not, I always remind myself in terms of the homeschooling, I always remind myself, it's not always about the academics. They're learning so much more. And we can, that's a whole nother topic, but
yes, it is.
like even literally a couple hours before we were recording this interview, my third son has a final exam, and we do some co-ops. And so with his math co-op on Monday, he has a final exam, and he's just not feeling prepared yet. And so we were practicing and studying and doing things. And I looked at him and I was like, you know what, you're going to do the best you can do. And you've come so far, you've learned so much, and it's those moments where I'm like, I'm not teaching him how to multiply fractions or divide decimals. I'm teaching him that, like, believe in yourself, like
Yes.
this isn't about mastering this topic. This is about mastering your peace. This is about mastering your time management. Like, what could we have done differently if you feel like you're rushing now? And anyway, all those things. But so first and foremost, yes, just knowing that I can take a deep breath and exhale at the end of every day, because God has called us to this. He has, given us this opportunity, these margins in our day to be able to school our kids. But at the end of the day, they're his kids, and he loves them more than we do. And he's not going to let them go a day without learning what they need to learn.
That's right.
Even if that means, shoot, we didn't finish today, we're going to start again tomorrow. Or,
Right.
And so, but yes, Andy and I work, really well together. We've been married for 21 years now. And so we know when each other kind of need a break. He's not at home most days because, again, with our manufacturing company, that's still pretty much like a baby company. It's only 3 years old. And so he's definitely still boots on the ground there. We have a great staff at our dealership now. So they pretty much run the day-to-day at the dealership. I also have help here at the house a lot during the days, a couple of days a week with laundry and things like that can just really kind of suck up my creative momentum, which I actually did a podcast on that, on our Big Ideas podcast about, outsource, get your groceries delivered. Don't spend the hour to the grocery store to buy the same things you're going to buy next week. Like, get it delivered, save yourself the time. If you can, have somebody come and help, like I said, the laundry, or we do a lot of Amazon returns as a guilty confession. We order things and realize that didn't fit or that didn't work or whatever. So just the menial things, outsourcing that. I am more of a night owl these days than an early bird, because I have teenagers. And so the late night conversations with them tend to keep me up a lot later than, but I also have a 3-year-old who likes to wake up early in the morning. So it is kind of a weird, I've heard that I'm called a middle mom. I've heard there's like a term there where you've got toddlers and teenagers. So we're walking into that. We, our 4 older ones are 14 to 8 years old. But then Liam was another, surprise. You're not done yet. Let's pull the crib back out. So, but yeah, so late nights, I usually spend a little bit more time getting some creative work done, trying to get ahead for the next day. I always say, if you don't plan for tomorrow, tomorrow's already done. And so I'm a big believer in planning. But again, still waking up every morning with my hands open, like, Lord, this is what I think we have on the table today, but if we need to throw it all in the trash and reset this whole day, like, I'm all ears. And so I've definitely done that more than once, where I'm like, oh, this is going to take priority today, So
it's so good.
That is so good. Well, Ashlee, we always have a little fun part with our guests. And so this one's for the moms that are out there listening. So we're just going to call this the quick lightning round. But what's your go-to mom sanity moment? Is it coffee? Is it a closet worship? Do you have a moment in the pantry where you can just have time to yourself? What can you share with all those moms out there that are doing the amazing things that you are doing for your 5 children?
Oh, I love that. I wish my pantry was big enough to hide in my pantry. My treadmill is my my go-to. I have a gym in my garage. And so it's not that the kids can't find me. I just think they know better by now. And so I will look at them and be like, I need 15 minutes. I'm going to go walk. And so sometimes I'll crank up the worship music. I've got a playlist of, like, just the good songs I get to my spirit. Or it's just lately it's just been quiet because I feel like there's a lot of voices, a lot of noise, a lot of needs. And so sometimes it's just helpful to just go out there and just hear my own breathing, my own heart rate. And so, yeah, 15 minutes on the treadmill. I'm a new mom. Yeah.
So that's
Great advice. Okay, Miss Ashlee. So we know you are the founder of the Big Ideas podcast, and you've got a beautiful mission of inspiring audacious faith. Where do big ideas come from, and how can we discern whether they are from God or just a good idea that looks shiny?
Gosh, I don't know if I can answer that. I guess just I'll, speak from my experience. And so, I would say big ideas are what God inspires. If it seems too big for you, then it might be the right move. I have definitely found that if I can wrap my brain around it and I can do it all in my power, then I'm thinking too small. But if it's going to require, God to intervene, and it's only going to work if he shows up big, then I'm usually on the right track, which is terrifying, but also so freeing if you realize, like, okay, then, like we've been talking about, then it's not all up to me. And so I think usually the God-given big ideas are not usually the shiny ones. They might look fun if they're, if they're using your gifts and, they're really pulling out of you things that, you're passionate about, obviously. I actually have a download on my website that's called Chase Down Your Biggest Dreams. It's 6 steps to do it. And the 6th step of it is, if it's something that you feel like, if it's an idea that you feel like almost comes under attack as soon as you start moving on it, it's usually an indicator that you are moving in the right direction, because it's that very thing we know. We'll call him fear. We'll call him, the thief of dreams. And the enemy does not like when you are moving on those big ideas and those dreams and the things that God has to show up for, because God's going to get all the glory, and he never likes that. And so when you do start moving on a big idea, if you feel like you just constantly hit this roadblock or this constant doubt or whatever it might be, just keep going, especially if it's not shiny right now, especially, we've talked about, working in the quiet space, especially if it's requiring you to steward your gifts versus striving for applause and attention. It's usually an indicator that you are moving in the right direction.
Yeah. Fantastic. And
I agree with that. And I'll add one more thing too. Probably the biggest thing is if it serves someone else more than it serves you, if it serves others in a greater capacity than it serves you, then it's also probably something you should move on.
It's so true. I always say inside of the word intention, like, you're doing this, I've made the decision, it's scary, we're going all in. Inside of the word intention is tension.
Yeah.
There is intention when there is tension inside of the word intention. So when you are intentional to do what he's called you to, and you feel like all the attacks, like you said, that's when you know you're on the right track.
Yeah.
Does it? Because how many people listening are thinking, man, this is hard? Because it is. Because like you said, God doesn't want to get the glory in your business at all. Yeah. And so I love that. I love what you said in that, because that's true. That's raw. That's just real. It's just keeping it real, which takes me to this identity that we talked about earlier, and the igniting your God-given talents. And what do you say, Ashlee, to somebody who feels like, and I know that Kevin can speak to this several years back now, but who maybe, or like you said, you were in the trenches of babies.
Yes.
And what do you say to somebody who feels like they've lost their own spark, or maybe they've raised kids and like, what do I do now?
Yeah.
Or they never found it in the first place. Like, I have no idea what I want to do with my life. Where would you say is a good place to start outside of the treadmill?
Yeah. Such a good question. Again, just from my own experience, I would say, and I do feel like that's a real audience. Like there's a
Yeah.
huge number of people, myself included,
Mm.
in different seasons, we were like, well, now what am I doing again? Now
Mm. Yeah.
what am I called to do right now? And so, what I always would probably recommend always is, doing the next best thing. What's one thing you can do? What's one call you can make?
Yeah.
Even one meal you can bring a friend, one text you can send somebody, one post you can make, one,
Mm.
if you're, I use the term loosely because I feel like everybody's creative. And so I don't even want to say creative person, but one work of art, one meal you can make, um again, like one phone call
Yeah.
can change so many things.
Yeah.
One step outside of your comfort zone to maybe reach out to somebody that you're intimidated to reach out to, or
Mm.
you feel like, I've always wanted to see what it's like to do this, or maybe book a trip somewhere, one thing to go, maybe open your eyes to see, just to get outside of your own world. I always love the saying, if you change the way you look at things, you change the way things look. And so sometimes getting out
Oh,
of our commonplace,
Yeah.
coming and going, and our little bubble, our little world, just opening your eyes to, like, gosh, there's a real need out here, or I can do something here. So I don't know, just one thing. I would start with one thing and just keep your hands open, your eyes open, be prayerful, and just asking God, genuinely, what do you have for me, Lord? And if you are really listening, He's always going to answer you. He's always
Yeah.
going to open a door. He's always going to give you a nudge. He's always going to speak to you. He's always going to he wants you to be fruitful. He wants you to multiply. He's going to give you what you need, and He'll open those doors. I think the challenge comes when we're like, no, I really want to do something. And then you're like, I'm also just really comfortable here,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
stepping on my own toes. And,
Yeah. True.
so I think just
Good.
genuinely asking and genuinely seeking, I think you'll find something.
Yeah. True.
It's
True.
worked for me. It's worked for me.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, do you have one message that if it was written across the sky for every faith-filled entrepreneur, or maybe somebody who's struggling in their faith right now,
Mm.
what would it say? Like what would the one thing that you think it would
Hmm.
say that could encourage somebody today?
Yeah, I love that question because I've literally been wrestling with that question for
Mhm.
several days. And so I love that you're putting me on the spot because, we didn't prepare for this podcast. We're just really trusting that
Yeah, we
God's
never
giving
do
us the
for any
words.
of ours.
And
Yeah.
yeah, I love that. And
Mhm.
I've been really studying the book of Acts because I feel like it's the book of action. It's the book of the verbs. It's the
Mm.
book of the obedience. And what's also been being revealed to me in it is that it's the book that doesn't end, right? You
That's
literally
right.
can't wrap that book in. There's no sign off, like it's
It's
just,
good.
and then we all
Mm.
keep living the testimony. We all keep spreading the gospel. We all keep spreading the message, the truth. And so, I have said that my message, my whole platform is, trusting the big ideas, trusting your passions, but trusting the unknowns to a God that everything is known to, gosh, I'm not the soundbite queen, Tonya. I
No.
don't know that I can say it as poetic as you, but, trusting God in the unknowns,
Yeah.
surrendering what we cannot control, and co-authoring with Him a purpose that's bigger than we could have imagined. And I also feel this tension that there's, maybe in the Christian world, that there's this idea that we love to say, let go and let God.
Yeah.
And while that's such a peaceful, beautiful thing to say, I also feel like there's a whole world of people out there that are like, there's more to it.
Yeah.
There's got to be more to it than that.
Surely there's more.
And surely there's more. And this mess I can't just let go of. Like
Yeah.
people counting on me. I can't just, let go. And so, yes, there's an attitude behind that I hugely respect, and it definitely resonates. But I do think that there's, going back to the verb and the action, I do think there's just a huge responsibility. I recently did a post that said, when I say trust God, this is what I don't mean. I don't mean that it's going to get easy. I don't mean that it's, just going to happen and you're just going to watch it unfold and be like, look at God, he's so good. You are going to say that, but it's because you're literally going to get in the mud. You're going to get, you're going to get in the gritty. You're going to get in the hard conversations of like, God, what are you doing? And like, I can't make sense of this. You have to show up like now. And if you don't show up now, like, I don't know how much longer, you've got to have those hard conversations. Yeah. And so it's not just this big red bow wrapped around this story of trusting God and all work. Like, we're literally like the book of Acts. We're all just every day, we're adding a chapter, and God is good in all of it. And we can go to sleep at night knowing that God is good and he's working behind the scenes, and we don't know what he's up to. And we're not God, and we're not meant to be. Yeah. But we are given gifts and talents. We are expected to walk, and that is a verb. And we are expected to take action with the smallest things, the one thing that we can do today, and then expect God to do something. God will do the multiplying, but 0 times 0 is still 0. And so if we don't give him anything to multiply, we can't be part of that miracle. And so we're the ones missing out. He's still gonna make it happen. But that's too much to write across the big blue sky. I need you to create a soundbite for that. I need your messaging team to work on that for me. But that's what I would say. Yeah. One thing, trust God, be willing to get dirty about it, get in the mud, get in the work. Don't be afraid to have hard conversations. Let God know what you're thinking, because he created you to have the passion, to have the emotions. He's not surprised, but
he already knows what you're thinking, right?
He already knows.
Yeah. He already knows.
Yeah.
He already knows. Well, Ashlee, that was fantastic. Again, we can paint that across the blue sky. Why not?
Yeah, let's do it.
So,
let's put a paragraph.
But so this has been so powerful, and we know listeners are going to want to know more of your wisdom. Tell us where we can take the dream quiz, listen to your show, and download Chase Down Your Biggest Dreams. Where should we send our listeners?
So you can find everything on my website at ashleeilg.com. My name is spelled a little bit uniquely. It's ASHLEE. Last name is ILG.com. You can also find me on Instagram. My handle is at ashleeilg. The dreamer quiz, it takes about 2 minutes, 10 minutes, maybe if you overthink it a little bit, but it's a really fun quiz to take, but then we get real deep with your answers. And so it's, what type of dreamer are you? And it helps you not only identify what kind of dreamer you are, but your next steps to dream even bigger. And so that's really fun. Yes, the download for the 6 steps to chase down your biggest dreams that we referenced earlier in the conversation, that's also on the website. And the Big Ideas podcast is available on YouTube if you like to watch. We're also on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. We probably will expand those platforms, but that's where we're at right now. We've are wrapping up season 3 right now. We've had so much fun doing that, interviewing so many great friends. And yeah, just taking those big ideas and sharing them. But yeah, I would say my website and then the Instagram are the 2 top places to find me. Thank you for asking.
That's great.
Fantastic.
So if you've listened to this podcast today and you recognize either yourself or maybe a friend, maybe somebody who's in the trenches of homeschooling, who's raising kids, building businesses, writing books, who's lost your dream, there is a dreamer inside of you that you can connect with. So if this resonates with you, or maybe you know of a friend who's struggling, share this episode, like, subscribe, do all the things. And as Kevin and I like to always end our podcast, peace in.
Peace out. Kevin
and Tonya Stout. So how many of you are ready to conquer your business, your income, and your life? Hit subscribe and join the Conquer Club, and let's start winning together.
Peace in.
Peace out.
Kevin and Tonya Stout.